comedy writes itself, although it can't be fun or funny in the Conway house.
No, it can't. That's absolutely
true. What's going on there?
And Kellyanne said she's worried about her children and what they may think about all of this, but the whole country is wondering what's going on in that household.
Tough.
But that's what that's all about.
It is tough. Welcome to CBS This Morning. Nora and John are off. Not to worry, as you see, you are in good hands because your name?
My name? You forgot it?
No, I didn't forget it. I just wanted you to say it, Anthony Mason.
David Begnaud.
David Begnaud, we are all here. I can never forget your name. I am nuts about
I'll whisper it to you all day.
Yes. We are following breaking news on the investigations into the Boeing 737 MAX jet crashes. Indonesian investigators this morning confirmed that an off-duty pilot was in the cockpit of the same Lion Air plane that experienced trouble one day before a deadly crash. They did not say whether he helped stabilize that plane. The lead investigator says the off-duty pilot was not in their initial report on the October crash because investigators had not spoken to him yet.
Boeing 737 MAX jets are grounded in the U.S. and around the world following the Indonesia crash and another about 5 months later in Ethiopia. 364 people were killed in the two disasters. Chris Van Cleve is at Reagan National Airport outside Washington with the latest. Chris, good morning.
Well, good morning. The FBI is joining a growing list of agencies demanding answers to include the Department of Transportation Inspector General, members of Congress, and the Defense Department. After last week's crash of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, a Boeing employee received a subpoena to retain records relating to the approval of the 737 MAX. Department of Transportation Inspector General agents told employees at the FAA's Seattle office to do the same. David Gomez is a retired FBI executive with experience in crash investigations.
What did the FAA and Boeing know? When did they know it? And did they tell anybody about it, or did they hide that?
The probe is focused on the process to approve the 737 MAX as safe and airworthy, a process that by design allows the manufacturer to certify much of the plane itself.
If there is any kind of documentation that indicates that they knew there was a problem and either didn't resolve it to the satisfaction of the FAA or didn't reveal that, that could put them in jeopardy in terms of a possible criminal violation.
Boeing is the nation's largest exporter and one of the world's biggest defense contractors. The Defense Department's Inspector General has launched an ethics investigation into Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan, a former Boeing executive, to see if he inappropriately pushed for Boeing products. Senator Richard Blumenthal asked Shanahan about the inquiry last week.
Do you support such an investigation?
Yes, I do.
Shanahan, in a statement, said he is committed to upholding his ethics agreement with the Department of Defense. Boeing executives are expected to testify in front of a Senate committee next week about the 737 MAX. Anthony?
So many questions still there about that plane. Chris, thank you very much. There are new concerns this morning about air quality after a massive fire at a chemical plant in Texas. Janet Shamlian is in Deer Park outside Houston, where authorities issued a shelter-in-place warning. Janet, good morning.
Good morning, and this happened just within the last couple of hours. We are 4 miles from the plant, just outside of the zone, where officials say they have determined what they are calling an actionable amount of benzene. At this point, there is a shelter-in-place order for all of Deer Park. Authorities are saying that people should stay in their homes at this time. They say the residential areas are not currently impacted, but the smell may be noticeable, and we sure can smell it where we are here. The Deer Park High School is just a couple of miles from that plant. Again, Deer Park schools have shut down, as well as 5 other school districts. Yesterday, there was a brief flare-up at the plant. That was quickly put out within about an hour, but again, those big black flames could be seen all the way from downtown Houston. Benzene is a known carcinogen, according to the CDC. People who breathe in high levels of it may experience drowsiness, headaches, and dizziness. It is likely at this hour, David, a lot of people have not heard of this. Very early here, people are being asked to shelter in place.
And we can hear the sirens behind you, Janet. Thank you very much.
Yep.
The historic Midwest floods are getting worse a week after that disaster started to unfold. A new levee breach yesterday on the Missouri River forced the evacuation of the entire town of Craig, Missouri, in just hours. Officials now estimate the cost of the flooding in 4 states to be in the billions of dollars. In Iowa, The governor said she is going to ask President Trump to quickly announce a disaster declaration to help with recovery efforts. Don Daler is in flooded Hamburg, Iowa, which is several miles from the Missouri River. Don, what's it look like this morning?
Yeah, good morning. Well, as you can see, it's wet. This is actually Main Street. The water gets a lot deeper the further you go in that direction, but of course it's never a good idea to go wandering around flooded streets. And I have to tell you, it is really eerie seeing those street lights stretch all the way into the distance. As we take an overhead look, I'll tell you, much of this is from the Missouri River, which came rushing in here when suddenly hundreds of miles of levees were breached, and within a matter of minutes, Hamburg became a town submerged.
In Hamburg, Iowa, nothing was spared. The homes and businesses of the nearly 1,200 people who live here were totally submerged.
There's no place for the water to go.
Major General Scott Spellman and his team from the Army Corps of Engineers assessed the devastation from above.
You signed up to protect people, to help people. So how does this affect you personally to see this town underwater?
You're dealing with people and communities that are having really the worst day of their lives, and we understand the frustration. We want to do everything we can within our authorities as fast as we can to help them.
As we rode through Main Street, it was only passable by boat.
Hamburg built a secondary levee before a major flood in 2011. It kept this area dry. Problem is, the Army Corps of Engineers asked them to lower it to 5 feet high to meet federal regulations, and this flood was 9 feet.
It just rolled in.
Kathy Crane has been the town's mayor for 12 years.
This is a tough community. We're little, and we're not wealthy. We are not wealthy.
How are you going to rebound from this?
We're asking for help. We want to keep our businesses here, want to keep our homes. We want to keep our citizens. They're our people. We've known them all our lives.
We have noticed the water has been slowly receding. I wouldn't be able to be standing here 2 days ago, but the residents are really concerned that with those levees basically destroyed, the town might be susceptible to even more flooding in the coming months. Bianna.
Don, there are so many people that are suffering right now, and where you're standing on Main Street really looks like a lake. It really puts things into perspective. Thank you. Well, New Zealand banned the sale